Okay, I want to welcome you to the Meacham interviews, and today we have Danielle Hanson, who is a former undergrad here. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. What we've been doing is having people start by maybe reading a couple of poems, and we'll chat a little bit from there.
Okay. All right, I'll read a couple from my reading today. I'll start with Eating His Dead Wife. And this is a poem that I found a little snippet in News of the Weird years and years ago that struck me. I've always been fascinated with how people deal with the extremity of grief. Eating his dead wife. It doesn't even seem weird anymore, eating his dead wife's ashes in his cereal every morning. He enjoys being with her every day, her inside him for a change. If the cereal is sweetened, he thinks of her eyes. Bran reminds him of her navel and how like a bowl it is. He doesn't know what will happen when he runs out of her again. For a while I got onto a series of birds fascinate me, and having the birds do kind of different non-bird-like things. So I'll read a couple of those. The first one is The Bird Eats a Building. The bird lands in a puddle, instantly shattering the reflection of a building, which she eats in pieces like a cracker crushed in soup. She dips her wings into pavement, throws her head backwards, gargles the second-floor copier before flying away, leaving the puddle to grow a skyscraper, like Prometheus developing a new liver each night, the price for stealing fire. And another on that vein, the man is walking his bird on a leash. The leash is attached to a harness, because the bird once pulled so hard she tore a hole through the air, leaving the man with a mess he could only patch over with his breath, taping the edges in an awkward manner. The city council gave him a ticket for using duct tape on the sky. And what does the bird think of all this? She dreams constantly of the other side of sky.
They're incredibly surreal on the one hand, but they're also real poignant. I mean, with the guy eating his dead wife, I mean, on the one hand you think, oh, that's so ridiculous and in a way kind of funny. But on the other hand, it's really kind of sad, especially the ending. You know, what's he going to do? And the idea of when she's dead again, in a sense, that's...
Yeah. Yeah, another similar thing that strikes me is, I think it was somewhere in the Philippines, and I don't know if this is still done, but there was a culture that when someone died, they would start talking about Grandpa's sick. He's just sick. He's in the other room. He's not coming to dinner tonight. He'll maybe tomorrow. And they'll go on for weeks like that. And of course the body at this point is decomposing, but eventually they'll be like, well, it looks like Grandpa isn't going to make it. And that they come to terms slowly, and this, you know, especially with a sudden loss, this ability to kind of pull back and suspend reality for a while until you're ready to accept it.
Yeah, I mean, part of it reminds me of, like, Jim Tate. You know, a lot of his poems were really funny on the surface, and I mean, to make you laugh, basically. But on the other hand, they were also really sad, and there's something about the speaker in those poems that sort of suggests a person who's really incredibly lonely. You know, so there's the whole question of voice is interesting. And how do you see your own voice and how it's developed?
So I think probably there are several inputs, and of course Jim was one of those. He came to Meacham during the years I was here, and I love his work. And then some of the others we read some during undergrad days, like just even Kafka. You know, this idea that you start with something absurd and then you say, well, what are the logical what happens if you believe that someone wakes up as a bug? I mean, people are horrified. People throw things at him. He starts liking trash to eat. And in grad school, we had a magical realism class that I loved, that Alberto Rios taught. And it was the similar kind of, you know, it's not all the way into surrealism perhaps, but it takes that and grounds it in a reality. and says, what if we accept that the world is like this? And that fascinates me, and I think that that's the art I love the best, the one that creates something new for me, but something that I can connect to, something that's not just weird, feeling like it's weird for the sake of being weird. So that's what I hope to achieve. And I don't know if you've found this, there on Twitter right now, there's a magical realism bot, and every 2 hours, this mechanical thing puts just a sentence of magical realism up, and there's some of them are dumb, but some of them are just evocative and
Like
beautiful.
what, do you remember?
Maybe a Russian princess in the 1800s wakes up to find that she is in a library, or something like that. They're just, some of them are so beautiful.
No, I don't know that side at all. But you know, when you were talking, it was also reminding me that that also your poems lead to a kind of social criticism too, at least social concerns. I mean, they're bigger concerns than, well, even with the townspeople not wanting to use duct tape. That sort of reminds me of all the kind of stupid little rules that you have that the governments come up with. You know, it seems like they can't think they're doing something unless they're pass a new bill or a new rule or something. But so, do you see that kind of role for yourself as a writer too?
It probably, I mean, that is part of the reality that we live in. And I live in the middle of downtown Atlanta, so it's very thick people-wise and very thick with different groups interacting and with different priorities. So that is life. So I'm sure that it finds its way into the imagery as well.
Yeah. Have you written anything about more directly about political situations like in the past several months?
No.
Do you feel compelled to, or do you think that's too? You think sometimes a lot of writers won't do that because they think it's too close to them, or that they might just end up writing propaganda or something.
Yeah, that's what I don't know that I have the skill to do it well. And then it's the twist and the escape and the making something new that appeals to me, and I'm not sure how to do that well. I just reread 1984 and was so disappointed with how, I know it was supposed to be drab and was supposed to be horror, but the writing felt so flat because it was just so mired in this is what it would be like, and I feel like I would probably make the same. I don't know if it's an error. Tons of people love that book, but for me it wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah. What is your process when you write? Where do you start?
Same as what you taught me. I feel like what you taught me as an undergrad, and that is to take snippets. When you see something, write it down, and then when you have a bunch of things, they probably connect because they happened around the same time and they happened all from your brain. So then I sit down and say, how can these tie together? Sometimes I have an image that I feel like I can just go with, and just see where that leads me. More of a Kafka kind of, what is the story, what is the reality that this would be in. But sometimes it's just taking images that I found or things that I've often sampled in the term of hip hop, from a lot of different sources, and hope that the original writers don't look at it and I hope they look at it and say, oh, that this is a new way to use that image and not the hell.
Oh, yeah, everybody does that.
Yeah.
Musicians do that all the time when they're taking, different trips and things. So where do you think your work is headed?
I feel like, so I quit work about a year ago, and before then, for years, I'd written maybe 5 pieces a year. And after I quit work, I think that first month, I wrote over 20 pieces, and then I followed it up with another residency at Hambridge and wrote, I think, 20 more or something. So, and I find that there is this pent-up energy in those. I'm sure they need revision, but it's as if something had been there for all those years I've been working, just waiting to open the floodgate.
Sure,
Yeah. So hopefully there's a little more intensity both in the amounts, but also hopefully in the writing itself.
Yeah, you mentioned graduate school before. How was your time there? I remember when you went off.
Yeah. So I had fantastic teachers. I worked with Becky and Goldberg and Norman Dewey and Alberto Rios, and especially Becky and Tito, Alberto. I took a lot of classes with them, and had wonderful fellow students, and I think overall it helped me hone my writing. But Phoenix itself I found extremely depressing. It's just brown and it's dirt. Yeah. So I found it difficult on that, which was probably good for me as a writer too, to go into a place where I was intensely unhappy for a couple of years. Yeah.
And what did, talk a little bit about your experiences here before you went there. So I guess we're edging back towards the origins.
Yeah. I'm peeling back the layers. So I came into UTC planning, not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I kind of gravitated towards math. And I had my freshman honors class with you, and I know you talked me into, I was easy to talk into, but talked me into taking creative writing classes. And then once I was in there, it struck. I love the game. I feel like it works so much like the math. You take something and you break it down into its components, and then you build something new with it. You see how this puzzle fits together. Either whether it's images, whether it's the equations. So I feel like they're so linked. In fact, when I went to Arizona, I did masters in both as well. Yeah, they've always felt the same kind of thinking to me. But that made me even think of being a writer, but also the trips that we took every summer, and the quality of the fellow students I felt that were here, and there was an intensity to the experience as well, because we hung out together outside of classes. We hung out together in the summer, traveled together, and I would say that was probably one of the more formative times in my life, and therefore also for my writing. Of course, it was the beginning of everything. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sitting in with us today.
Thank you. So nice to be back here.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah.
All right.